He couldn't look at my face. He knew what he had just done to me, and he knew how much it hurt me. But how could he not do that? My best friend since third grade, the best man at my wedding, Brandon knew me inside and out. To make it easier for him, I said, "Relax, buddy. We're not chopping off the heads of messengers anymore." "Are you sure she didn't see you?" "I don't think she saw it." "But am I sure?" "No, I can't say I'm sure. I saw her as soon as I walked through the door and turned to go to her. And when I saw her kissing a guy, I turned around and found a dark corner to sit down. If she saw me, she didn't show it. My best friend just told me that my wife is cheating on me. He called me at work and asked me to meet him for a drink after work. As soon as I saw his face, I knew something was bothering him. And I knew Brandon well enough to know that it wouldn't do me any good if I started right there and asked him what was wrong. He exhausted himself until he couldn't say it. All I could do was wait. It took about 5 minutes of small talk and sipping beer before he finally got down to business. "Rob, I'm damn sorry that I'm the one telling you this, but Barb is cheating on you." I wanted to jump up and shout at him, "No, no, damn it, you're wrong." But I knew that wasn't the case. He had known Barb for as long as I had, so it was unlikely that he could see someone else and mistake her for Barb. I asked him how he knew, and he told me the story. He went on a blind date as a favor to his sister, and unsurprisingly, at least for him, the date turned out to be a disaster. He dropped the girl off at her apartment and decided that he needed something stronger to drink. He was in an unfamiliar part of the city, so he decided to go to the first bar he saw. He walked through the door of the establishment and saw Barb leaving the dance floor with some guy. They walked to a booth along the wall, and just before he sat down, he saw Barb kiss the guy passionately. Surprised, he found a place where he could sit and watch, and for the next hour he watched Barb and the guy drinking, dancing, and kissing in a booth. When they were dancing, they were both snuggled up to each other, and the guy's hands were all over her. When they got up to leave, he gave them a minute and then got up and followed them out of the bar. He saw them get into the back seat of the car, and a minute later Barb's head disappeared from sight, and the guy leaned his head back against the seat. Brandon didn't try to get close enough to look into the car. After about 3 minutes, her head lifted and they moved. Then Barb disappeared from sight again, and a few seconds later her feet rose into the air. At that moment, he drove out of the parking lot and headed home. He went through what he knew for 2 weeks, unwilling to tell me, until finally he couldn't hold back anymore. On the way home, I thought about the night Brandon said it happened. I remembered that I was in Baltimore solving a production problem. I called Barb at noon to talk to her, and she told me she was going out with the girls for a drink after work, so I wouldn't worry if I called and she didn't answer. I wondered if she did it every time, what Brandon saw when I left town. If that was the case, then she did it at least twice a month. It just didn't make sense to me. I saw absolutely nothing in Barb's attitude towards me that would indicate dissatisfaction or loss of affection. We were married for 10 years, and I thought it was a good marriage, but obviously I was wrong. One thing I knew for sure: I would find out. The first thing I had to do was figure out for myself what was going on. I couldn't tell Barb about what Brandon saw, because it would just degenerate into a shouting match punctuated by things like, "I'm your wife. Who the hell are you going to believe, him or me?" Frankly, I was going to believe Brandon. He had no reason to lie to me, unlike Barb. If for some strange reason Brandon had lied to me, it would have been easy enough to find out. I would have given Barb more rope to hang herself with. And if she hadn't, I would have taken a closer look at Brandon. I was supposed to make an inspection trip to our factory in Anniston, but I changed the schedule so that Gary could make the trip. I arranged with my boss to take a week off and explain the reason to him so that he could properly answer any calls Barb might make to the office. Then I enlisted Gary's help. I knew he would help me because he had just gone through a nasty divorce after catching his wife in bed with another man. I explained the situation to him, and he said he would be happy to help. I bought a disposable phone at a convenience store, and the only one I gave this number to was Gary. On Monday morning, I kissed Barb goodbye, telling her that I would call her as soon as I checked into the hotel. I said I would see her in 4 days and left for the airport. At the airport, I left my car in a long-term parking lot and then went to the Alamo and rented a medium-sized sedan, and then went and found myself a motel room for 3 nights. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Gary called me and said that he had checked into room 416 at the downtown Marriott Hotel in my name. I parked down the street from where Barb was working when she was finishing work that evening and followed her. She went straight home. I gave her an hour and then called her on my regular cell phone and told her where I was staying. If you call me and a strange man answers, don't hang up. There was a mix-up with our booking. There's a kind of convention going on in the city, and there weren't many rooms, so Gary Williams and I share a room. I'll contact you tomorrow. I love you, honey, bye. I stayed on the block until 10:15, and when she still hadn't left the house by then, I headed to my motel. I called her at noon the next day and reminded her that Wednesday was garbage collection day and that she should not forget to put the trash cans on the curb. I'm having dinner with the CEO and production managers tonight, so if it's late, I probably won't call and wake you up. If you don't hear from me before 9, don't wait. I love you too. Bye-bye. That night, I followed her again, and she went straight home and never came out again. I started to wonder if I was jumping to conclusions when I thought she was using my trips out of town to cheat on me. I only had one night before I was supposed to come home, and she went home and stayed at home every night that I watched. I didn't call her the next day at lunch, and at 4:30 Gary called me and said that Barb had called and left a message for me at the front desk. I called her on a disposable phone to find out what she wanted. I just wanted to let you know that I'm staying with the girls after work tonight and will probably be home late. I didn't want you to worry if you called and didn't get an answer. Be careful, honey. Take a taxi home if you drink too much. I'll be home tomorrow and we can pick up your car. That's why I love you, baby, for always thinking about me and my well-being. I love you. I love you too. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. When she came home from work, I followed her. She drove across town and stopped at the same bar where Brandon had seen her. I had never been to a bar and didn't know its location, and I didn't want Barb to know that I was following her. So I moved my car to where I could follow her car so that she wouldn't notice me. I knew a lot of the girls Barb worked with, and while I was sitting watching the doors, I didn't see even one of them show up. Just after dark, Barb got out, got in her car, and started it. I prepared to follow her, but all she did was drive the car to the back of the parking lot and park it in the darkest corner. She turned off the light and just sat there. About 5 minutes later, a couple of guys came out, walked up to the car and stood talking for a few minutes, and then one man got into the car and drove away. The second man stood and watched until the car was out of sight, and then turned and headed to the far end of the parking lot, where he got into Barb's car. He and Barb slid towards each other and started kissing. After about 5 minutes of hugging, they both got out of the car, and I expected to see them return to the bar, but what they did was get into the back seat of Barb's car. I know it sounds stupid, but up to this point I was telling myself that Brandon had misunderstood everything. That Barb loves me and wouldn't cheat on me. I was convinced that there was a reasonable explanation for everything, but the fact that she deliberately climbed into the back seat drove the denial right out of my head and heart. They started kissing again, and Barb slowly slid down until I couldn't see her anymore. I saw a man looking down at her, and even though I already knew everything I needed to know, I had some kind of perverted need to really see what Barb was doing. It wasn't enough for me to just know that Barb was making love to this guy. I should have seen it. I got out of my car and walked towards Barb's car, trying to stay so that the man wouldn't notice me approaching them. At that moment, I started clapping my hands and shouting, "Bravo, bravo, great performance. Wonderful first act." Barb looked up, saw me, and her face lost all its color. I've heard of faces turning pale, but this was the first time I've seen it. Great show, guys. I'd like to stay for the second act, but I have some urgent personal matters that need to be taken care of. Barb was trying to get out from under the man when I turned around and walked back to my rented car. I was just driving away from my parking spot when Barb finally managed to get out of her car and ran up to me. She asked me to wait when I slowed down. I pulled out of the parking lot and headed back to the motel. The next morning, I drove to the airport, rented a car, and picked up mine from the long-term parking lot. I stopped by the office, and Marcia, our receptionist, told me that Barb had called half a dozen times and said it was very important that I call her at work as soon as I received the messages. I thanked her, went to my office, called the company's lawyer, and asked him to recommend a good divorce lawyer, and then called the number he gave me. Fortunately, the lawyer was able to see me on the same day, and I made an appointment. Then I did everything I thought I needed to do to cover my ass. I canceled all joint credit cards, called the local newspapers, and placed a notice in the legal department stating that I was no longer responsible for any debts incurred by Barbara and Mercer, née Barnum. I went to the bank and took half of the checks and savings, and also withdrew my name from all accounts, leaving them only in the name of Barb. I got some bad news that afternoon. We lived in a perfect marriage, so everything was divided in half. It didn't matter to me, so I told him to go ahead and file a case. He told me he could apply the next day, and I asked him about the restraining order keeping Barb away from me and home. He said that a restraining order is difficult to obtain without very good reasons to obtain it. And so I lied. I told him that Barb and her lover threatened to kill me when I caught them, and I was afraid they would try to kill me to get my life insurance. Good, he said. Such a threat can speed up the case, but you will need to prove it when we hold the hearing, otherwise it will be canceled. It's all right. As soon as I move out of the house, I will give up on this, and we won't even have to hold a hearing about it. How soon can this be done? I could be at the courthouse when it opens, and if you're willing to spend $200 to speed up the process, she'll have the paperwork by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, do it. I arranged for him to call me as soon as Barb was notified, and then returned to the office. Marcia left for the whole day, but she left 7 messages on my desk, all from Barb, and all asking me to call her as soon as possible. I crumpled them up and threw them in the trash, and then sat down at my desk and started looking through the ads in search of an apartment closer to work. I spent most of the next morning looking at the apartments I had visited, and at 1:30, I signed a lease for one of them. At 3:10, I got a call saying that Barb had been notified. I rented a truck, bought some packing boxes, and drove to the house. At 4 o'clock, the courier who informed Barb came in and handed me a copy of the injunction. It said Barb couldn't get within 500 feet of me. A couple of my friends helped me, and by 5:15 I had taken everything I wanted out of the house, except for my clothes, and loaded it into a truck. I was busy loading them when Barb pulled into the driveway. She got out of the car and walked towards me, and I shouted at her to get back in her car and get away from the house before I called the police on her for violating the restraining order. This is stupid, Rob. We need to talk. No, we're not going to talk. Actions speak louder than words, and I've seen you in action. Now go away. Not until we talk. Okay, Barb. I gave you a chance. I took out my cell phone and turned on the preset to call the police, and then went into the house and locked the door. Barb was banging on the door, demanding to be let in, when a police car pulled up to the entrance. I went outside and gave them my copy of the injunction. They read it and then told Barb that she needed to get at least 500 feet away from the house. She protested that this was also her home, and she had the same right to be there as I did. In the end, the officer told her to get out, otherwise he would take her to the station. I stood there hoping that she would continue to argue with him, and he would take her away, but Barb had a sudden attack of smartness. She got in her car and drove to the end of the block. I thanked the officer for his quick arrival, and then finished loading the truck and left the house. First, after making sure that Barb wasn't trying to follow me, I went to my new apartment and started checking in. I spent the weekend getting comfortable and then went back to work on Monday. I hadn't been at my desk for 2 minutes when Marcia poked her head through my office door and said Barb was online too. I really didn't want to talk to her, but I was being unfair to Marcia by making her answer all the calls and postponing the conversation with Barb, so I picked up the phone. Yes. Robbie, please talk to me. I have nothing to tell you, Barb, but I need to talk to you. Go on, I'm listening. I can't do it over the phone. Rob, people keep coming into the office. Come home, Rob. Please, just come home. I'll cook dinner and we can sit and talk. No, thanks. I don't have a home, and I see no reason to come back to you. Okay, pick a place and I'll meet you there. But please, Rob, I need to talk to you. I really don't want to talk because it would be a waste of my time, but you can drop by my office when you finish work. By then, everyone will have to leave. I'll give you 15 minutes, and that's it. She showed up at 10 minutes to 6. When she came into my office, I pointed to a chair and said, Okay, Barb, what do you want? That's what I don't want, Rob. I don't want a divorce. I didn't want a wife who picks up guys in bars and makes love to them in the back seats of parking lots, but I still have her. I'm sorry you saw this, Rob, but even so, it shouldn't be the reason for our divorce. You can't be serious about this. You're making love to other men, and I'm supposed to be okay with that? It's not other men, Rob. There is only one. I was dating Jeff before I met you. I ran into her one of my evenings when I was walking with the girls from work. I've been dating him for about 3 months. What? You knew him before you met me, and that's why it's okay. Rob, I've been dating him for about 3 months. Have you noticed any lack of affection for you during this period? Have I been less loving than I have been throughout our marriage? I love you, Rob, and I don't love Jeff. My meeting with Jeff didn't cost you anything, Rob. Absolutely nothing. I only see him when you're out of town. I never came to you after I was with him. Then I guess it's okay. I'm trying to convey to you that my meeting with Jeff didn't hurt us at all. I'm not disrespecting you by coming to you just now from Jeff. I don't sneak up behind your back to see him when you're at home. The point is, Rob, you're my man. I love you, honey, and you're the only one I want to grow old with. I'm sorry, Barb, but I don't see things the way you do. You say you don't disrespect me, but I say you showed me extreme disrespect when you cheated on me with another man. I can't accept it. I can't equate your claims that you love me, want to grow old with me, and that I'm your man, with the fact that you're making love to some other guy. It's just not computable. If I were really your man, you wouldn't be making love to Jeff at all. And I'm not buying that you're making love to Jeff just because you dated him before you met me. If that were the case, I would have to accept that sooner or later you would have slept with half a dozen other guys you made love to before you met me. God, Rob, I would never do that to you. You're already doing this with Jeff. Rob, I made love to Jeff. Really? I think it explains everything and makes everything right. Listen, baby, I love you, and I never wanted to hurt you. I don't want to hurt her now, but I have to be honest here if I want to have any chance of saving my marriage. I'm making love to Jeff because he's giving me something that you don't have. You are a wonderful man, a fantastic husband in every way except one. You're disgusting in bed. I need something more. When I bumped into Jeff during my night out with the girls, I remembered how we made love. I wondered if he could still do it. And when he started hitting on me, I went to the motel with him. He gave me something that you didn't have. God, Barb, I'm so happy to know that. Let me ask you something. When I came home from work and you didn't feel like cooking, and you said, "Can we go out to eat?" Did I invite you out? Yes, you did. When you came up to me and said you had a hard week and you wanted to go out, have fun, and blow off steam, did I invite you out? Yes, Rob. That's right. Actually, didn't I usually do what you asked me to do? Almost always. Then why in the name of all that's holy didn't you tell me, Rob, my bed life sucks, and then ask me to do something about it? You never complained, so how was I supposed to know? My attraction is not that strong, and on Tuesday and Saturday I was fine with everything, and you agreed with that. If I fed you hot dogs every night for a week and you got tired of eating hot dogs, would you tell me? Would you like to make love to anyone, but talk to me about something as important as your bed life? Oh no, I can't do that. I'll just go and make love to some other guy. At least it's nice to know that if you had a choice, you'd choose me over Jeff, but you don't have a choice, Barb, and I do. And since I have to choose between living with an unfaithful cheater or divorcing her, I choose divorce. I gave you a chance to talk, and now it's over between us. Please don't bother me anymore. Anything else you need to say, you can tell me through my lawyer. Please go away. Rob, please don't do this. I love you, baby. I really love you. Go on, Barb. Just go away. Tears were streaming down her face, but she got up and left without saying another word. The divorce was finalized last week, and I haven't seen or spoken to Barb in the last 6 months. I miss her. I really miss you. I still love her, and I believe I will always love her. If I had just started my car and driven away when I saw her getting into the back seat of her car with Jeff, and then told her about it when she got home, we might have been able to sort things out. But I didn't leave, and there was no way I could have stayed with her after watching what she was doing in the back seat. End.